Hey, you all, my name's Adam Conrod, and we're doing this podcast about the unfortunate tariffs that went into effect a couple days ago by United States President Donald Trump. And firstly, I gotta say, is how are you guys faring with these unwelcoming tariffs that are in place, unfortunately, by United States President Donald Trump? And is it already impacting your financial capabilities? Because, things could be a lot worse, in my opinion. This is my opinion, what I'm saying. One way or the other, President Trump was going to bring these tariffs into effect one way or the other, and nothing was going to stop him. They really wasn't. Nothing was really actually going to stop him. And, I got to say, when we look at the way how our country is run, this is my opinion, over the pregnant 30 years that I've been involved in politics, one of the things that I noticed at the provincial and federal scale of things is that Canada and Nova Scotia are too reliant on other countries and other provinces to look after itself. And over the years, I have noticed that Canada, including the province of Nova Scotia, are too reliant on others to be able to function. And I had also noticed that they had not been making any measures of being able to not rely on other countries and doing things themselves. And I got to say, things like this is going to happen over time if we keep on relying on other people to do things for ourselves. For example, I'll say, look at the jobs that was here in Nova Scotia that was lost because of the lack of commitment by our elected officials to keep jobs here in Nova Scotia. The automotive sector, the manufacturing sector. Look at the chocolate factory that was based in Halifax that went over to Woodside. And that been in Woodside for close to, 50-some years almost? Or was it 40-some years? But anyways, it was in Nova Scotia for a very long time. Then they decided to pack their bags and head to Mexico. 2 weeks before the tariffs went into effect, you would have seen me scoping around Halifax and Dartmouth at their shopping plazas like at Walmart, Giant Tiger, and etc. And today, day 2 of the tariffs, I went around looking. I had not noticed a lot of prices that have spiked since the tariffs went into effect. President Trump got the tariffs into effect at 25%. And in a couple weeks or so, he's going to put some more tariffs first on steel and aluminum and all, and it's only going to get worse. And it was on the news, on the internet, that President Trump is now considering easing back on the tariffs for Canada and Mexico. Let's show it. There it is. There it is. We're reading it.
United States Congress, thank you very much. And to my fellow citizens, America is back.
That was the main message from President Trump last night in his first speech to a joint session of Congress. The president taking a victory lap of his accomplishments so far, including his crackdown on illegal immigration and big tariffs on imports. But Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick saying the president could reduce the 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico pending more cooperation from those countries on stopping the illegal drug flow. And NewsNation's Kelly Meyer has the latest.
This is my opinion. The reason why President Trump is doing what he's doing on the Canada side of things is he wants to see how far he can push the Canadian government. Because when you look at the way how the Canadian government have been operating, they've been relying on the United States far too long. You look at the Canada's military. We once had aircraft carriers. We once had good, reasonable jet fighters defending our country. We had good, reasonable helicopters, the Navy. And when you look at it today, they got nothing. Very, very little. Canada once had aircraft carriers. Why can't we reinstall aircraft carriers? What's wrong with this picture? Why can't we do that? Why is our military shrinking to the point that it's almost non-existent? That's a problem. And from the days of the Cold War, Canada had been easing back on its military, not taking things seriously on increasing its homeland security and military, the Air Force, and its Navy as much as what they should have. Like I said, Canada once had aircraft carriers. Why did we let it go? Why did our Canadian government let it go for? Did it make no sense? Why can't we reconstruct aircraft carriers once again? What's wrong with this picture? Is it because our Canadian government, when they run for office, they're only running for office for that wealthy pension and increase that wealthy pension and it's just say, hey, the heck with our military, we got the United States backing us up? No. Donald Trump got a point there. Canada is relying on the United States far too long. They're too busy banking their money in their own pensions instead of putting their money, investing their money into this Air Force, into its military. They got CF-18 jet fighters. A few years back, Prime Minister Stephen Harper was going to buy those F-35 jet fighters. The Liberal Party got after us, said, don't do that. What are we wasting our money on that for? Stephen Harper was actually correct. We need the F-35s to replace our F-18 jets. We struggled to replace the Sea Kings with these Cyclones. We should not be struggling to replace our military. That's what's wrong. We struggled to replace the Sea Kings, and they should have been retired at least 20 years before when they were actually retired. That's an issue. The Navy. Look at the Halifax Harbor. We got all kinds of harbors along Nova Scotia sea coast that could be a great military defense bases. Sheet Harbor, I should say. Great harbor. Actually, it's just as big as the Halifax Harbor. Why is there no military base in there? It makes no sense. Canada literally led its military to basically dissolve to basically non-existence. It's not acceptable. When I was at Walmart, I seen prices hike a little bit on their DVDs in the movie sections, but nothing that great. When I was shopping in Walmart, I was looking around for Canadian-made products. One of the things that I noticed about the Canadian-made products is that they were not labeled as what the Canadian government has said that these department stores would have Canadian-made products labeled. I found products very hard to identify if they were made in Canada or made in any country for that fact, because when I was at Walmart today shopping, I was looking for Canadian products so I can help my great country of Canada. I don't want to become part of the United States because in the United States, when you retire, you work till the day you die. There's no retirement pension. There's nothing. President Trump said, well, Canadians are reluctant to pay for health care. This is a man that's a billionaire. President Donald Trump is a billionaire. The whole United States of America is run by billionaires. It's easy for him to say Canadians are reluctant to pay for health care when he's the president of the United States. And, when a person gets elected as president, their health care is free until the day they die. So, obviously, President Trump is not tuned into reality of what he's talking about. What Canadians need to do is what's the average price range for health care if Canada was to become a part of the United States. I guarantee you health care will cost you anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 per year. And what if you're a person with cancer, terminally ill cancer? You're fighting for your life. You just go to see, I think you can sort of see where I'm getting at here. It's easy for President Trump to shoot off his mouth, talk about stuff, saying Canadians are reluctant to pay for health care because they don't want to. It's not because they don't want to, it's because we can't afford it. And when you look at provinces like Nova Scotia, it's a poor province. In Nova Scotia, majority of its people are low income. There's no good paying jobs. There's no jobs worth going out of your way for. No jobs that are reliable. That's the whole key with Nova Scotia. They have no jobs in Nova Scotia that are actually reliable and dependable to support themselves and their families. Most employers in Nova Scotia often lay people off soon as their probation trial is coming to an end, so they can start the cycle over at cheaper wages, so they can operate cheaper. And that's a repeated problem here in Nova Scotia. And unfortunately, the Nova Scotia government decides to stand by and do absolutely nothing about it. Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston, in my opinion, he should only been given a 1 4-year term, not a second 4-year term. His election that he called in November in 2024 was called so it would benefit nobody but himself. Tim Houston, in my opinion, is a pure example of a con artist. He's playing our hero. He's playing our friend. He's playing our buddy right now. But he's not really your buddy. Tim Houston, including former Premier Stephen McNeil, the two of them, should have been a one-term Premier only. And when you look at Nova Scotia's history, their past of electing the wrong people into office, it's a repeated occurrence. It continues onward. Darrell Dexter was the first one-term Premier, and it should have been a one-term Premier right up to Tim Houston. And when you look at the Nova Scotia 2024 provincial election, nobody was interested in it. Nobody cared about it. They were bringing no topics up that actually interested Nova Scotia or Nova Scotians. Here on the Eastern Shore, Nova Scotia, they needed a new high school, Eastern Shore District High. It was so badly wore out. It had asbestos. Eastern Shore District High was so badly run down, it should have been closed at least 30 years from the year when they actually closed it here in 2025. I left Eastern Shore District High in 1999. I was embarrassed to go there. I was actually embarrassed to admit that I went there. And in fact, if you look at history, you'll see me basically erasing history. Adam Conrod does not want no affiliation or his name attached to Eastern Shore District High. Look at his history. It's not good, you know. And then when they replaced Eastern Shore District High, what happened? The entire community of the Eastern Shore seen what happened. They built it too small. They decided to construct a junior high, replacing Gatesbrook Junior High and Eastern Shore District High into one big joint school. Junior high and high school joint as one. And what happened with that school? They built it too small. And now you're going to say, how can you build a school too small when you had these years of planning, these years of getting things ready, preparating for everything to be perfectly good to go come the grand opening day? But it was anything but perfect. Where was their planning strategy? Where did they get their data from? How can you build a school that's too small? And not only that, what do you do with all these students that can't fit in the school? They decided to bring portables in the 21st century in 2025 to this new high school called Eastern Shore Consolidated. Ain't that pathetic? And you want to hear anything more that's even more pathetic? They re-elected their provincial MLA, who is their voice at the provincial level, to have that school ready for them on their grand opening. And he failed to do that. Kent Smith is just another name added to the pile of useless, incompetent MLAs that the Eastern Shore had elected throughout the years. Not good. Are they going to replace, are they going to fix this school that's too small for these students? I doubt it. They'll drag it on as much as they can. Because when the MLAs run at the provincial level on the Eastern Shore of Nova Scotia, they run for the benefit of themselves, and they've been doing it for years to the point that your children's future is on the line, to the point they don't even have a school to go to anymore. That's how bad it is. And then building a school that's far too small to house your students go to school in, or your kids, I should say, unacceptable. The attitude of the Eastern Shore should be, it's either you're going to work for the better of the community or we're firing your ass out the door. But the Eastern Shore, the people of the Eastern Shore don't see it that way. And it's been like this for years on the Eastern Shore. If you wear a liberal shirt or the conservative shirt, no matter how bad of a person you are or what bad deeds you did to people or the community, as long as you wear those two color shirts, liberal or Tory, they'll always vote you in no matter what. And those are the parties that have been in office on the Eastern Shore throughout the years was Liberal and Tory. But I gotta say, like I said in the past, when I looked at the people who've been proactive on this turf war, it mostly was middle-aged people, seniors. I've been noticing that the younger generation in their 30s, in their 20s, even high school students, they sooner laughed it off, look at the situation that we're in, and they rather just not take it seriously. And there have even been Facebook postings of comedians making fun of Canada's situation, referring to Canadians as stupid. And this came from a Canadian comedian, believe it or not. And funny how he never responds when people respond back to his posting. And my response to people who make postings like that, if you're going to take jabs at people during a bad situation, you might want to prepare for the negative backlash. Because if you don't want that kind of backlash, I'll give you some advice right now. Don't make the posting on social media. But I noticed, like when I went to Walmart, very little of their products in the store was labeled where they were made at. It was Canadian made, it was American made, it was made in China, it was made in Israel or whatever. It did not say where it was manufactured. It was very hard to find where the product was made. There was no Canadian leaf, anything saying it was Canadian. You literally had to turn the package around, almost tear it apart, and you can see where it was made at. And it was a lot like looking for the best before date. Very hard to see. They got hid under this wrapper or something, the hardest place where you can find it on the package before you find it. And that's another thing. Maybe the federal government should be making it mandatory that the best before dates on food and items in stores should be a lot bigger displaced than where they have it, how it is already. So small your eyes can barely pick up the image where it's at on their package, It's a concern. But in my opinion, with Justin Trudeau's days as Prime Minister comes to an end Sunday. He will be the former Prime Minister come Monday morning. Whoever wins this Liberal leadership race will become Canada's next Prime Minister. But I'm at odds. I'm unsure if the Liberals are going to pull through this next federal election because my concern is Pierre Poilievre. I call him Pierre Poilievre. I don't believe Pierre Poilievre is going to be a good Prime Minister. I think Trudeau was the better person, but it is what it is. Hey, the people of Canada spoke up. They wanted Trudeau out, so he's gone. He resigned. But I got to say, Trudeau did a significant, great job during the COVID-19 pandemic, combating the convoy truckers, which I think they should be ashamed of themselves. Trudeau did a great job getting the vaccinations out there. He did a great job getting the masks out there for all Canadians to use. He did a great job of listening to Canadians. Isn't that funny? In 2015, when people said they want their weed legalized, when Trudeau agreed to do it, how everybody loved him. Then when the end of Trudeau's term comes, suddenly they bail out on him. I'm going to tell you right now, I was Justin Trudeau's former delegate before he became Prime Minister. And I stand by his side from the start, and I'll stand by his side to the very end. And the one thing that Trudeau can't say about me is not once did Adam Conrod bail out on him. And that's the way I'm going to remain. I remember having a conversation with Justin Trudeau on the phone when he was just a member of Parliament for Montreal. I had a conversation when he called my house. He called my house again when we were running for the leadership race. And I remember talking to Justin Trudeau. I said, Bud, I'll vote for you. I think the world of you. Absolutely. And I stand by him to this very day. But with the tariffs, I believe Trump just did that. Just for the sake of doing it. There was no stopping him. He was going to do it one way or the other. It didn't matter what the Canadian government proposes. What's the name of that drug? Was it Thinsahol or what? Nah, I can't pronounce the name of the drug. I really can't. He's saying it's come across the Canadian border. Justin Trudeau said we cracked down on that drug at 95%. It's basically 0% of that drug crossing from the Canadian side of the border. And Canada cracked down on their border significantly. But I got to say now, some of the stuff what Trump's saying, I agree with him. Canada is allowing too many migrants into his country illegally and the wrong way. The wrong way, I mean, is they're allowing people to enter Canada, approving them before they leave their country and they enter Canada. And the ones who've been entering Canada before they were checked were people that were linked to terrorist groups like Hamas, the Taliban. These are people that we do not want in this country, and Canada was just letting them in left, right, and center. And on that side of things, I agree with Trump. We got to crack down significantly. Just don't allow people in their country because there's a war-torn fight going on the other side of the world. We got to look after Canada first. We got to employ our people first. And we got to house our own people first, because here we are in Nova Scotia, a serious housing crisis. Isn't that funny how the Canadian government will house these migrants before they'll house and look after its own Canadian people? That's why people like me was a Donald Trump supporter before he got elected for his second term as President of the United States, because of that. Canada should be looking after Canada first. Canada should be doing its own manufacturing, its own automotive sector in its own country. It should be making its own health care in our country, our own vaccinations, or everything on healthcare should be done here in Canada, not going overseas and let these other people do our jobs, what our Canadian people should be doing. Canada should be looking after Canada and not relying on other countries. Now, I questioned the meeting with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and, what's his name, King Charles, how that went. You know, I hope Justin Trudeau was talking about, can we get a serious pile of not only NATO, but a serious pile of military armed personnel, Air Force, Navy personnel, guarding his Canadian borders in case if the Americans try to invade. Isn't that funny how Trudeau, our federal government, not once did they ever explore the possibility of an American invasion in Canada? If I was Prime Minister, that's the first thing that I'd be talking about. And that'd be the first thing on why I would want to talk to King Charles. I like to have a strong, very strong military presence at our Canadian borders in case the Americans try to invade. But secondly, I would say, let's say a war breaks loose. Let's say, all right, a war happens. What Canada, this is my opinion only, what Canada and the world needs to do is, which they already are doing, is recognizing Donald Trump as a threat to the world, and he is. Perhaps if the world were to get together and look at using force to remove President Trump from the Oval Office, from having power as President of the United States, like they did with Saddam Hussein in Iraq back in the day, when George W. Bush decided to invade Iraq. Is that something that the world should be looking at with the United States of America? Now, the United States of America is posing a risk to the world. Now, does the world have to do the same thing what they did to Iraq, but the same thing to the United States? Now, the President of the United States is becoming a threat. What's wrong is, what I've been noticing over the years is the United States of America have been going around country to country playing the law and the law and order. How can one country have that much power? They're the ones who dictate who says what and when to these countries. A lot of people are say, well, that's where that old saying where the New World Order is supposed to come into effect, you know? But see, what the world needs to do is find a way to come to world peace. The days of going to World War and all this stuff is long gone. The world should be looking at building military defense systems on the moon. The only time when the world should be using weapons of mass destruction is for planetary threats that are posing a risk and a threat to the Earth. Asteroids. Install a base on the moon, a NASA base on the moon where astronauts can live on the moon. Even Mars. Can we install a missile launch base on the moon where we can shoot an asteroid that's coming towards the Earth from the moon, so it gives the Earth a lot better fighting chance? That's what weapons of mass destruction should be used for, not be pointing them back and forth at each country. That's not what kind of weapons should be used for. They should be to defend the Earth. But I also believe that, the world should be looking at space travel, find Earth-like planets. How do we get humanity on other planets besides Earth? Like it or not, if you realize it or not, you can laugh at this if you want. But the day's going to come, the earth is going to die. And here we are, too busy pointing the weapons at one another, trying to bomb each other out of existence, when we should be looking at how do we put humanity on other planets to live and thrive for a new home. We can't stay here on Earth forever. The global warming's happening. Our ozone layer is getting worse. We're not doing a very good job of looking out for the better of humanity. We're doing a very poor job on it. And, it's a lot like, you're trying to stop the inevitable from happening when clearly we can do a good job on it. We didn't move forward very far from the days of the Great Depression. Let's just put it this way. What happened during the Great Depression is actually happening all over again, especially here in Nova Scotia. You see the poverty everywhere. You see government doing very little for its people. Here in Nova Scotia, they don't act until a situation is in crisis, when they could have acted on it long before it went in crisis, but that's just the way how Nova Scotia is. That's the way how the people of Nova Scotia are. They allow things to slide down the conveyor belt until it falls in crisis before they act on it. But, it is what it is. So I got to say is, during this past couple of days that I went into department stores like Walmart, Giant Tiger, I did not see a great price change take place. But when I was in Walmart, like I said, and Giant Tiger, I struggled to find Canadian-made products that are being clearly noticeable. And I mean, maybe our federal government got to re-announce things to people like department stores like Giant Tiger and Walmart. You may want to put the labels Canadian-made on the products before you open your stores. You should do that. Or even the manufacturing companies, when they put their items in their bags for ready for sale, Canadian-made, American-made. Please print that off in your bag so we all can see that. But they don't do that. But anyways, yeah, my name's Adam Conrod, so I'm just asking you guys if you guys had noticed price jumps since the days when President Trump had brought the tariffs into effect.